So this is another one of these movies that's had a very long and tumultuous release. And in the case of this one in particular, I actually have no idea why that is. But it screened at some festivals 3 years ago, and then it eventually got released in some regions last year. However, I'm pretty sure it never got released around these parts at all. Until it finally came out digitally a few months back, a memo which I also happened to miss. But it's out now and available, and apparently the version that's out there is the director's cut. Even the title on IMDb says the director's cut, so maybe the original version just didn't do well. As I said, I have no idea, but I do know I was looking forward to seeing this. Because it's directed by Alfonso Gomez-Rejon, who made Me and Earl and the Dying Girl, which I thought was really good, but not only that, this also stars Benedict Cumberbatch and Michael Shannon, among other really talented actors, so the casting seemed to be very solid as well. But the good news don't stop there, because the story here is also one I was very intrigued by. It's actually one I was a tiny bit familiar with from before, but I hadn't looked that much into it. But the story is essentially about how electricity became widely available in the US. And it's a story of rivalry that gets really ugly at certain points. Because on the one hand we have Thomas Alva Edison, who's a proponent of direct current. And on the other side we have Mr. Westinghouse, who's backing alternating current. Now turns out that both have their pros and cons, and we still use both to this day. But back in the late 1800s the technology was still new and the competition was fierce. Primarily because bringing electricity to the masses involved massive potential profits, as you might imagine. So as with a lot of things, a lot of that was driven by money, but not all of it. And the movie here gets into a lot of the motivations and what went on behind the scenes. Now, as I mentioned, I was a bit familiar with the story from before. Primarily because I'm a fan of Nikola Tesla, one of the unsung geniuses of the modern world. But this movie doesn't actually involve him all that much, and I'm not sure if it downplayed his role in this or not. But at least for the sake of this story, the rivalry is very much set up as Edison versus Westinghouse. And you know, this does come across as a bit of a dramatization, which of course it is. But at the same time, it took care not to unnecessarily villainize anyone involved too. It actually ended up being a fairly balanced portrayal of the whole conflict. Which I liked, but it's not the only thing I liked, because I actually enjoyed this movie overall too. It's just fairly well shot with a decent amount of creative flair thrown into the mix. It's well written, and as one might expect from a cast like this, the acting is really good too. But overall what made this work was that it's just well paced, it doesn't drag, and it's just plain entertaining. It keeps the pace up and it keeps moving with quick and snappy editing. Because there is actually a lot it has to cram into, like only 95 minutes. And at times it can feel a bit rushed, that much I do have to admit. But overall I just found it to be effective and entertaining, and I liked it. Now with that being said, it's definitely not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination. But it's very decent, and I didn't really have any major issues with it at all. And I do hope more people end up seeing it, because it is a really fun and interesting story too. With a lot of elements of truth to it, even though a lot of the details might have been dramatized, as I said. However, does that mean I would recommend this? Sure, why not? I think it's probably worth checking out. Or, you know, you could also choose to skip it. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic. And if you like, you can also support me on Patreon or PayPal through the links in the description. And as always, I appreciate you and thanks for watching.